Can you briefly introduce yourself, please?
I'm Selina Robinson. I'm the MLA for Coquitlam-Millardville.
What does it stand for, the MLA?
I'm the member of the Legislative Assembly representing all the residents who live in this particular constituency in the south slope of Coquitlam.
Tell us about your job life and, job like and life and so on, something.
Well, I was raised in Montreal. I was born there, and I came here when I was 14 years old. My family moved here for economic reasons, better opportunities. Much like I would imagine Korean people move here. They see economic opportunities. And my parents, because of the language laws that were happening in Quebec in the 70s, there was some concern that as English-speaking Quebecers, we wouldn't have the same opportunities. So my parents decided to come to Vancouver, and my father's a small businessman, and he bought a small business and worked very hard, made lots of sacrifices. Children, we all worked in the business. We helped out at the early days because
what kind of business was that?
It's emergency oxygen and first aid.
Fantastic.
So he's built it from scratch, and it meant a lot of family sacrifice. The office was in the house, and the product would come into the house, and the kids would open up, as kids we would open up the bags and we package things, and it was all very exciting to get things ready and to help. My mom did the books, was the bookkeeper for my dad, and dad would go out and sell. It was hard. We made some huge sacrifices, and he's built it up over the years. He still has the business. My mom and dad have lived a very nice life. I got to go to university.
UBC?
Yeah, I went to SFU.
SFU?
Yeah.
Simon Fraser?
Yeah, I went to Simon Fraser University.
Major?
I did a psychology degree in honors, and then I did a master's degree in counseling psychology. And
same university?
Same
SFU.
university. I stayed at SFU. And I became a family therapist, and that was my career before I became a politician. A family therapist doing counseling, working with individuals around depression, anxiety, couples counseling, so if marriages weren't working. I did cross-cultural counseling.
You gotta deal with me then.
Sure.
Maybe someday.
People who wanted to get married and didn't know if they should get married. People who were thinking about divorce, didn't know if they should get divorced. People who just moved here, for example, immigration, and were having a hard time finding their place. Parents who are worried about their children. So I've done that work. Addictions counseling, working with people who were addicted to gambling or alcohol or drugs. So I've done a wide range of things over 20 years, working with people doing counseling.
Can you just share me about the politician history, how to be a politician, and why did you get interested in the politician and something like that?
I think it's an interesting story. I never, ever intended to be a politician.
A lot of people say that.
Never. It's a hard life because you answer to the people and you have to represent the people, and the people are not unified. They don't all have the same opinion or the same values or the same goals. And so how do you do that in a way that represents that diversity? It's a challenge. There was a particular incident in Coquitlam that had to do with homeless shelter and the homeless in our community. And back in 2007, there was some activity to do a cold, wet weather mat program for homeless people. And 5 churches in the Tri-Cities said, we will host for 1 month of the winter, we will allow homeless people to come, to have a dry place for the night. We will feed them. It will be volunteer run, so volunteers from the church community will come because we think it's the right thing to do instead of leaving them in the cold. And I thought that was a good idea because we don't have a homeless shelter anywhere in the Tri-Cities, and the thought that we have over 200 homeless people in our community and there's no place for them didn't sit well with me. That didn't feel right. So where I live in Ranch Park, which is a community not far from here, just by Mundy Park, there's a big church about 150 meters from my house. And that was one of the churches. And my neighbors were upset. They were knocking on doors and saying, this is terrible, it's a bad idea. those people will come into our neighborhoods and they'll hurt our children, and there'll be drug abuse and needles everywhere, and someone was even saying they're going to rape our children, and it was rhetoric and over the top anxiety in the community, and I didn't think that was right, and so I got vocal back and said, but these are people, these are someone's brothers and sisters and children, and they have problems, absolutely, and how can we abandon them to the rivers in the middle of the winter? And here we have churches, it's volunteer, we have churches who are saying, we will take care of this. And so I got vocal, and there was a meeting at City Hall called a public hearing, and this was in 2007, and I said, okay, I will speak at the public hearing, and this is in Coquitlam City Hall, to say that I support this in my neighborhood. And I went and I spoke, and there were 300 people, and I was nervous, and my hands were shaking, and the paper was shaking, and I had my speech, and I said my speech, and I talked about the responsibilities that we have as human beings to help these brothers and sisters and mothers and children of that had mental illness or had addictions or were struggling to figure out their place in the world, and that this was the least we could do for them. And after that, people started talking to me and said, Selina, you spoke so well. Have you thought about politics? And I said, no. Oh, what a terrible idea. I love my job. I like what I do. But people worked on me, and there were different bits and pieces, like when all the stars align. I had heard somebody talk about politicians as public servants, that we serve the public, and that politicians, really, want to make the community or the city or the province or the country a better place. And I thought, well, that fits my values. It's work that I've always done. And so after a while, it's like, okay. So in 2008, I ran for city council, and I won. I'm very competitive. I don't like to lose. And I worked hard. And then I won again in 2011. And then the MLA, the Member of the Legislative Assembly, that's the provincial body, the MLA for this community was retiring, Diane Thorne, and she asked if I would run in her place in the 2013 May election, this last May. And I said, okay. I mean, it's another way to serve the community, and you do it from Victoria. It's harder. It's a bigger piece of the pie now. It's not just Coquitlam, it's the province. And I thought, well, I'll try that and see if I can serve in that way. And I won. So here I am.
Yep. A lot of people say that politicians should be good leaders. Yeah. There are a lot of leadership styles, like charismatic leaders, visionary leaders, and transformational leaders, or servant leaders, or something like that. But I definitely say that you are one of the servant leaders. Yeah. What do you think you are?
Oh, which style of leadership? It's an interesting question.
Interesting. I'm interested.
You know what? I actually think I think I'm the kind of leader that wants and invites others to step up to leadership. That's the kind that I'd like to be, a participative leadership. I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. But I think that when we work together, collaboratively, collectively,
open discussions,
and have discussions, and can see each other and understand each other and respect each other, and find ways, common ground, that we all benefit, that we are all stronger for that. So I don't need to be the leader that everybody bows to or recognizes or is even in awe of. Like people, even in terms of what people call me, do we call you MLA Robinson or the Honorable? It's like, no, I'm Selina. I'm still Selina.
Exactly.
I'm the same person I was before I became an MLA. I have a particular job to do, and I'm honored that people elected me to do it, but I'm still the same person. And I want to hear from people. We might not always agree, and I might have a different perspective, but I will respect what people have to say and take in that information and make a decision, because that's my job, is to make decisions based on all the things that I hear. right? That everyone's opinion matters and counts. I may not agree with them, but it's still important that I hear them because that informs me and helps me make the decision that I think is best for the community.
Exactly.
So that's the kind of leadership I think that I value and that I want to demonstrate. I think it's the kind of leadership that builds our strength as a community and as a province.
Is there any issues like you are really focusing on or concentrating on, like to just solve the problem?
Yeah, well, I just had my first opportunity to bring forward what we call a private members bill. I did that at the beginning of March of this year, and it had to do with the disappearance of Shin No, Pastor Shin No, who disappeared back in September.
He's Korean, right?
He's a Korean fellow, lives here in Coquitlam. His family, I mean, my heart breaks for them. He has Alzheimer's, and he went for a walk, and he never came home. And I can only imagine how hard that must be on his family. The police searched, and the Coquitlam Search and Rescue were called out. And then the family put out a call on social media and invited the community to come and look for him. And I was one of those people. It was a rainy day, and I said to my husband, it was a Sunday, and I said, put on your rain gear, we're going out to look for this Mr. No, we're going out to look for him. And he's like, okay. And we went to the center of where Sam, the son, and was coordinating the search. We went to search headquarters, and we were told, okay, go look for him here, and here's the picture, and put out posters. And what amazed me was the number of people who came out.
Exactly.
They came from North Shore, they came from Surrey. People descended on Coquitlam to look for this gentleman.
Exactly.
So it touched our hearts. Everyone was impacted. That could be my father, that could be my husband, that could be my brother. And what struck me was if we had a coordinated response, I mean, there were people who saw Mr. No, but didn't know he was missing. If they knew, people who knew him actually, people who were his parishioners, who saw him but didn't know that he was missing, didn't know he had Alzheimer's, if they had known, they would have stopped him. They would have sat with him. They would have called police. So I brought forward this idea that we should have a silver alert, and it would work much like an amber alert that would put a call out to media, a call out to search and rescue, a call out to the community, a call out to municipalities, because all the government workers who clean our parks and fix our streets, they're out all the time. And say, this person is missing, this person has Alzheimer's, they're scared, they're lost. If you see them, call police. Because the police can't do it alone.
Exactly.
And this way, everyone is looking and just keeping their eyes out. We also know that people with Alzheimer's, the number is going to grow. And they're expecting 177,000 people in the province of British Columbia will have Alzheimer's or dementia over the next 20 years. And they will all be cared, most of them will be cared for at home because we don't have enough hospitals. And families will need the support of their communities. So I proposed this back in March, and I met with the Minister of Health this week. I think there's some hope that we could move on this project. I'm going to watch carefully. I warned him, I'm very tenacious. I don't let go of things. So I'm going to be watching this very closely, and I will be checking in with his office regularly to see what progress is being made. And I'm hopeful that this will come to fruition, and we will have a Silver Alert program. And it's because the community stepped up to help the No family, and unfortunately he still hasn't been found.
Could you be more specific about the Silver Alert program, like, how to detect the person or something? Is there any devices or something?
It's not about devices. I mean, there are devices, and families can make those sorts of decisions. It's not about a device. It's about when someone gets lost, when we have no idea where they are.
Exactly.
What should we do? What should there be a protocol to call for help? Procedures. That's all the Silver Alert is. So if someone is in, let's say, Nelson, British Columbia, or Trail, there's a protocol that says, this person is diagnosed with dementia. we're going to, so you go to police, the family says this person is missing. Police say, okay, we are going to call these 8 media outlets in our community. We're going to call the municipality. We're going to put the alert out. We have people who are in social media, and there will be maybe a hashtag that says, Silver Alert Nelson, for example, if you're in Nelson. And the alert will go out, and it just stays in that community because someone who is wandering isn't going to go very far. If you live in Coquitlam, it would take a whole lot of effort to get to Surrey. Right?
I understand.
So really it becomes a Coquitlam, Port Moody, Port Coquitlam focus because they only will go so far if they don't have a car, right? They're on foot, unless they get into transit, which opens it up much bigger. But typically they wander and they're on foot.
Let's just move on to another topic. Like, as far as I know, you have been elected twice as a Coquitlam Council.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, were you raised here, or what was the reason for that? Like, main reason.
That's a good question. No, good question. When I got elected in 2008, I think there were a number of things that helped me get elected. The first was that I worked for Share Family and Community Services, which is a local social service agency. They operate the food bank. They operate housing for people on low income. They provide English practice groups for new immigrants. They work with children who have developmental disabilities. They provide addictions counseling and family counseling. They have a range of service that helps people in the Tri-Cities. And my role at the time, I used to be a counselor for them, a family therapist, but at the time, I was their fundraiser. Right. So I would go out into the community and ask people for money. And part of asking people for money is promoting the organization and doing events.
How was the result?
Pardon?
How was the result? I was just wondering.
It was a good job to have, and I think I did a good job.
Oh, yeah.
Raise money, because at the end of the day, that's how you know you did a good job. Do we have more money now than we did when I started? And we did lots of events, and so I was in the newspaper a lot. So I developed profile. I developed Share's profile, but I was associated with Share. And that really helped me get elected the first time, because people knew me, and I think they felt comfortable with me. I think it helped me get elected. The other thing that I did that helped me get elected was I worked really hard.
What really hard?
Hard work. It's hard. It's hard work to get elected. I knocked on doors. I was out every day for 45 days, for 3 hours a day, 5 hours on the weekend. Knocking on doors, talking to people. If I'm going to represent you, tell me what's important. What matters to you? What should I pay attention to? That I think helped. People wanted, I wanted to hear from people, and I think people like that. Right? They like that I was interested. I didn't say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Yeah. If I'm going to represent people, you tell me what I should do. And so I think that helped. I think people were surprised, like, you want to know? And it's like, yes, I want to know. What's important? And so that helped to form my opinions about what's important to the electorate. And that helped to inform me. So when I got elected, and I was very happy, I got to work. I got to work on what I heard from people. And one of the things that I became a champion for was a pesticide ban, a cosmetic pesticide ban in the community.
More specific?
I had heard from people when I asked them about this, because I'd been doing a bit of research. People, you can no longer spray chemicals because I won that. I convinced council, but it took me a long time. But if you want a nice green lawn, you can spray chemicals on your lawn to kill all the weeds, for no other purpose than to make it look nice. Those chemicals that you put on the lawn, we know are harmful to children. They're harmful to animals. They cause cancer. And why would we risk our children and our health so that we don't have dandelions, right? So that we have no weeds on our lawn. I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about pretty lawns. And I thought that was a problem. I thought that, and municipal governments have permission to ban or not to ban these products. And soon after I got elected, I said to my colleagues, I would like to have a conversation in the community about whether or not we should ban these chemicals, these pesticides, just to make lawns look pretty. And most of council said, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to touch it. We want to leave it alone. And that shocked me. You don't want to have a conversation about this? And the effect of that, and this is where media plays an important role, media thought, this is ridiculous. So I got calls from the radio, I got calls from TV, CTV, Global, CBC, they all said, how did that happen? And so it pushed me into the
Power of the media.
Power of the media, right? They recognize that this is, even though whether or not to ban pesticides might be controversial, I mean, to not have a conversation about whether the community wants to do this. And so media, so I thank media. Media.
Thank you.
Well, media, it became a news story. And what was interesting was it still took me 3 years.
3 years.
To make the ban happen. And that's where I'm really tenacious. Especially when I have the community behind me, and really the community was behind me. I got emails and Facebook messages. People say, Selina, you go for it. This is a good thing for our community. So when I get that, it reminds me that this is a good idea. And even though I didn't win this battle, I'm going to stick to it. I'm not going to let it go. So the community supports me, and then I will do that. And it's much like the Silver Alert. I have been getting media calls every week about Silver Alert, and I get messages all the time. This is a good idea, and so I'm going to stick with it because the community is telling me they want it.
Justice is alive still.
Well, we try.
We try, yeah.